morning, and you are welcome to the Dailies Heard Echo Television International. I am Rachel Tanze, and today again I'll be doing the show with Lois Taraki. Good morning, Lois.
Good morning, Rachel.
How was your night?
It was good. How was yours?
It was fine. Are you ready for us to go through what is happening in Nigeria?
We're ready.
All right. And please don't forget, we are live on YouTube and on Facebook. So please follow us, drop your comments, and we'll be sure to read it and know your opinion on what is going on in the country and the world entirely. So I'll be starting with the first paper, which is the Daily Independent. And the big story on the paper is Orosanye report execution. Civil servants jittery over job loss. You can start with the details on the front page and continue inside the paper. At the top of the paper, we have NASU threatens strike over 4-month salary arrears. Gives 2 weeks ultimatum, accuses federal government of favoritism. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 7. Transcorp Power lists 7.5 billion shares on NGX, boosts market cap by 1.8 trillion naira. 12 died, 28 injured in Zaria-Kano Expressway road crash. Health workers begin 7-day warning strike in Oyo State. And on Bayelsa Tribunal, disband panel now. Silva APC acts appeal court in precedent. You can find details on page 7. Alleged 4 billion naira fraud, Obiano stalls trial, challenges court's jurisdiction. And the NIN, Lagos activist seeks 10 billion naira damages from telcos and NCC. Experts worry about looting occasioned by hardship, list solutions. You can start with the details on the front page. At the downside of the paper, CPPE wants federal government to review expatriate employment level. Details can be found on page 13, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
Now to Vanguard newspaper. The big story there says corporate Nigeria shuts down Lagos for wiki. And the writer says as Dangote, Edun, Cardoso, Sanwo-Olu, additional Amukede, others pay tribute. And why seems previously linked to NIN were barred, says NNCC. You can find the story, the details on page 5. MPR Obaseki for CBN warns of tougher times ahead. Edokuba INEC opens candidates nomination portal. The writer says, I'm APC candidate, Idahosa writes INEC. IPAC tasks parties on issues-based campaigns. You can find details of the story on page 7. On electricity, Discos reject 753 megawatts despite FG's pressure. And down here you can find on sports, 2023 African Games. 358 athletes to represent Nigeria in 25 sports, says NOC. And I think the last story here says Transcorp PLC lists on NGX, and there's a picture story there with Tony Elumelu and some other people. I think these are all the stories on the Vanguard newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, Edo Governor Obaseki hits CBN on economy. The writer says Apex Bank policies can cause improvement. I take the writer again. Says Apex Bank's policies can cause improvement. Tinubu's reform will fortify Nigeria's economic foundation. A statement coming from Shetima. You can find details on page 6. The big story, clock ticks for DSS, NIA DGs, and IGP. Police chief to retire this year, extended tenure of intelligence agencies head under focus. Navy destroys 3 illegal refinery sites, wooden boat. Herders kill soldiers, injures another in Benue State. So we have 2 stories in one, that of Navy destroying illegal refinery, and then herders killing soldiers in Benue State. You can find details on page 5 and 4. 12 killed, 28 injured in Zaria-Kano road crash. Depending on food aid from Ukraine, national disgrace. This is a statement coming from Peter Obi, and we couldn't agree less because we are looking at the war in Ukraine. We saw how the supply of wheat made flour to go high, and then all of a sudden we are now depending on a war-torn country for food aid. It is really sad, and I just hope that the Nigerian government can actually do better and maybe depend on a more reliable country. And then it shows that
probably we can do ours.
We can do ours, and then it's sad in a way because it shows that even a country that is in a war situation than us is doing better than us. I mean, and all of that. So
it's sad.
It's sad, yeah.
But I'm just hoping that probably we can start doing something on our own. A lot of other things, because when you look at it, you know, Nigeria has a lot to offer. It's just that there are so many things in place that are not favorable, or they are not being implemented for us to be able to produce those things that other people, because you can just imagine that Ukraine, that is a war-torn country, we are relying on them for wheat and all these things that we can actually grow around.
We can grow them, yes.
So
you can find details on page 25. FCTA pulls out of federal civil service, gets 9 new permanent secretaries. And still on looting, a writer under the story says FCTA to establish police posts in warehouses. I was hoping that NEMA and the authorities in charge would have seen ahead of the future. We saw that during the COVID-19, and looking at the hardship in the country, this could have happened, and they should have tightened security even before the incident that took place in Abuja happened. But then let's just hope that we don't record more of such losses anyway. You can find details on page 28 and 29. And then we have tomorrow in Daily Sun, focus on APC as mega ruling party. At the downside of the paper, pay more attention to your children, Marwa tells parents, and this is on drug and I believe drug abuse related cases. You can find more details on page 5. We have picture stories, one at the top showing chairman publisher, the Sun Publishing Limited, Nea Kalu, presenting Special Achievement Award to actress Funke Akindele during the Silverbird Awards in Lagos. And then at the down where we can see that Transcorp have been listed now on NGX, meaning you can buy shares, you can liquidate, and all of that. And then we can see stakeholders together with Tony Elumelu and others, and that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
The Guardian newspaper, the big story there says 198,432 pending court cases leave many in jail. Businesses stranded. And on there we can see a picture of someone in jail, and there are some specifications there. Nigeria spends 5,412,400 naira daily to feed 54,124 awaiting trial inmates. And Court of Appeal has 39,526 pending cases, 144,910 lingering at Federal High Court, and FCT Magistracy has 13,996 pending cases covering civil and criminal matters. Rachel, this is quite alarming for me because 198,432 pending court cases in Nigeria.
That's a lot.
That's quite a lot. Yesterday in Haiti, there was a report that 4,000 inmates fled the jail. And I'm sure they have, because Haiti, since the assassination of their president, they've been in one chaos or the other. And then the present leader was not even in the country when this happened. And you can imagine 4,000 inmates out of, I think, 2 prisons, or like two of it, of their prisons. And then looking at what we have in Nigeria now, 198,000 pending. These are people that some of them might even be innocent.
Yes,
They've not been tried. Nothing has been done. The cases are just, some have started trial and everything, but the cases are still there, pending adjournments and all of that. And then look at the amount of money being spent daily on these people that could actually go out there
and be fending for themselves,
you know. it's really sad that we keep seeing all these things happening every day in this country. It's really sad. And then we've had records of jailbreaks recently.
We have that,
because of all this kind of things. People that are not supposed to be there are there. People that are supposed to be there, they should be there. And then their trial and whatever, their court cases should be done, and they should know that, okay, this is the crime they have committed, they are charged for it, and they are being sentenced. But all of these, the prisons are being crowded with a lot of people, and killing, they even kill each other, and brutalization, all of that. I think this is really alarming, and I think they should do something about it.
And you know, when you look at this number saying Nigeria spends 5,412,000 on daily to feed. We even saw a case last year where the guard dogs at the prisons are having better meals than even the prisoners, where there was a breakdown of how much for a day, and then how much the animals in the prisons were being fed was higher than what humans were getting. And then for me, I believe that this shows a gap in lapses in the judiciary, because in just the Court of Appeal, we are looking at 39,526 pending cases. And then at the Federal High Court, lingering, we are having 144,910. Now, this is at the federal level. Now we can go down to the state level, because we have high courts in states, and then appeal courts and all of that. And then it shows that something or somebody somewhere have not been doing the needful for long, and I believe that this is what the news on our papers keep revealing to us. Because in the first place, why are we having this case, and why are they in jail? Because there are cases that before it goes on trial, there should be bail, depending. And if it is a case that is meant for trial, there is a period of time that it shouldn't move above that, so that the person gets his sentence, start serving the jail time, and then eventually either be released on parole, or, you know, you serve your due time and all of that. So it shows that we have a judiciary that have to wake up and clear these backlogs of prisoners that are on detention, that haven't been tried, no bail, and some are even innocent, and all of that. So I see it as a backlog of cases that needs to be cleared by a judiciary, and is something they can do. And the problem with when you leave your work to pile up is that it becomes plenty, and then for no reason it will take a longer period of time. So let's see a cleanup in our judiciary. This has been lingering for a very long period of time, and the number will increase. By next year it will increase, the year after it will increase, because the numbers for last year, every day, every single day. So I just hope that the needful is being done.
Hopeful. Well, to the next story, stop proliferation of arms, light weapons, Tinubu task AU and United Nations. You can find details of the story on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Monetary tools cancel food price crisis, additional insists. Amotekun arrests 3 jailbirds, 64 other suspects in Ondo State. And you can find details of the story on page 8. Furore over new tax regime, stiffer enforcement in Enugu. FG to begin grains distribution, insists warehouse looting criminal beyond hunger. Well, this whole grain issue and the whole looting and everything, I thought by now people should be able to get access to these grains, like the distribution.
They should.
But from what is here is they are going to begin, FG to begin the grains distribution. And I'm not supporting the looting, and that's a criminal act.
Yeah.
But the more you're delaying to distribute this money, these grains to people that are the vulnerable, the more you get people trying to loot warehouses.
Yes.
So I think the earlier the better, so that all these warehouses, vandalization and looting and everything will stop. the federal government, I don't know when they want to, because it's not being stated here that they are going to start tomorrow or later today or next tomorrow. I think it should be done faster than what is happening right now. I think there's a delay, or I don't know what is happening, but something should be done fast so that these things will be distributed to people that actually need it, and then they will not have to do all those criminal activities and all. Because based on what is being stated here is that the warehouse looting criminals, this is beyond hunger. And
Lois, that's my #1 problem. Every time you look at the papers, we can even link it to terrorism. The #1 problem, one of the #1 problem with the Nigerian government is downplaying a situation. They downplay insecurity, they downplay terrorism, they downplay everything that is going on in the country. And this is what they are trying to do, saying that warehouse looting criminal is beyond hunger. And the question is, was there looting before the hardship? So why are you trying to downplay that this could slowly be a motive of hunger? Why are you trying to downplay the fact that these people are solely out there because of because of hunger, sorry? Because we haven't seen looting taking place. Ever since COVID-19 pandemic, we've not seen any case of such happening because the economy was not that bad as it is now. And yet you want to downplay it.
It was crazy.
It is. So why are you downplaying it at the federal government? We saw people coming out for protest, and you're trying to say people were being instigated by opposition party. And then you wonder, are these people not in Nigeria? Did they bring them from elsewhere? Are they pretending to be saying all that is happening, or is it not the truth of what is happening? And until we have a government, Lois, that don't downplay the situation in this country, I don't think we are going to make headway. It's the same thing they do for security. You refuse to call the problem as it is. And that's why it's still lingering. And that is why it's still lingering. And we want to see the same thing, saying is, no, let them, it is what it is. And then we want you to address the problem as it is. We don't know about any other motive. All we know is hardship and hunger. And until you investigate and find out any other motive, the motive is hunger and hardship, and we leave it there. So you wake up and you do the needful, and you provide for the citizens of Nigeria, and stop trying to beat around the bush when you know exactly that this is the solution to the problem, and it could bring an end to whatever is going on in the country.
So I hope that the government does this very fast, so that all this looting and everything would stop, and then stop adding meanings to all of that. Well, review or assign reports before implementation, civil servants tell federal government. You can find more details of the story on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper. And then Clinton, Obasanjo, Macron, additional others eulogize Wigwe. And the last story on the Guardian newspaper says, looting food warehouse reflection of hunger, frustration of Nigerians, says INC. And this is all the stories you can find on the Guardian newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Nigeria's future was sold under last administration. Coming from Plateau Governor, you can find details of his statement on page 5. FCTA to establish police posts in warehouses. Federal government to begin distribution of grains nationwide. You can find details on page 5. The big story on Nigerian Tribune, Obaseki warns of tougher times ahead, says Nigeria must focus on production, discourage dollarization of economy. Average retail price for refilling 5 kg cooking gas hits 5,139.25 kobo. This is a report from the Bureau of Statistics. You can find details on page 7. Ukraine's grain donation to Nigeria disheartening, a statement from Peter Obi. Oil health workers begin 7-day strike. On oil theft, Navy nabbs Ghanaian vessel, 13 crew members. More details can be found on page 25. Akeredulo's wife knees at loggerheads over support for Aiyedatiwa. PDP on those stakeholders brainstorm over Guba poll. Party releases timetable, holds primary April 25th. And then we have a picture story where we can see NDLEA doing their job. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Now to Blueprint newspaper. From the top, Ramadan, Emir of Kano urges traders to reduce prices of foodstuff and others. You can find details on page 6. Navy naps crude-laden Ghanaian vessel, 30 crew members. On business, CBN reveals plans to settle 1.64 trillion naira TRS in Q2. On sports, African Games, 358 athletes to represent Nigeria in 25 sports, says IOC. And the big story here says children dying of hunger dehydration in Gaza, says the WHO World Health Organization. And the writer says families eating leaves or animal feed, US laments, says women giving birth to malnourished babies without medical care. 70% financial crimes traceable to banks, according to EFCC chair. And there you have a picture story of the president and the Qatari, I think the king, or yeah, and then some other people in. I think that was when he traveled to Qatar for the signing of the deals on education and other sectors of Nigeria, and then he came back to Nigeria yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And it says barred subscribers didn't get cleared, verified NIN. That's coming from NCC. That means that subscribers that have been barred didn't get cleared or verified NIN. Doesn't. When they did the linkage, it wasn't subscribed, or it wasn't successful. That's why they are being barred from the network. So, like I said yesterday, you should try and see how you can go and still register your NIN with your SIM card, so that you avoid being barred from the network provider. The next story here says, okay, the writer here says, insist information provided for NIN SIM differ. Another story says 12 dead, 25 injured in Zaria Kano Expressway auto crash, according to official. If you want to get more on this particular story, you find it on page 11 of Blueprint newspaper. Reps to issue arrest warrant against Bain and CEO. You can find the story on page 16. Oyo butchers increase prices of beef, goat meat by 100%. Airlines lose 15 billion naira to passengers' behavior annually, according to Air Peace chair. And you can find more details of this particular story on page 14 of the Blueprint newspaper. I think on this Oyo butchers increased price of beef and goats, maybe they should just be all vegetarians right now.
It's possible.
By 100%, that's a lot. Well, these are all the stories you can find on Blueprint newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, Tearful Dango immortalizes Wikwe, road named after him. Details can be found on page 4. Transcorp Powers hits 2 trillion naira on listing rally. Firms targets 500 billion naira. Akeredolu's wife blasts in-law for backing Ayedatiwa. Police to arraign 15 for Abuja warehouse looting. U.S. Supreme Court clears Trump to contest against Biden. You can find details on page 28. While telcos barred 40 million telephone lines. Government takes minimum wage talks to Nigerians in zones. This is the big story on the paper. And at the downside, we have CBN slashes customs FX duty raid. Under varsity workers disrupt convocation. You can find details on page 4. And that's all news on the Nation newspaper.
Now moving to the Punch newspaper. From the top, you have AFDB plans $2.7 billion US budget agri loans for Nigeria. Dangote names refinery road after Wigwe. Approach Zimbabwe for solution to inflation, Obasanjo tells federal government. On food crisis, OPS warns of shutdown as hoodlums loot more trucks. You can find details of this particular news story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper, and the writer says, building materials spaghetti trucks attacked in Ogun, Kaduna, 15 arrested in Abuja. Federal government condemns warehouse looting, Kano store evacuates wares, states to get free grains. The downside of the paper, you have banks involved in 70% of financial crimes, according to EFCC. And NSCDC, Tompolo men raise Ondo oil thieves hideout. You can find most details of this story on page 23 of the Punch newspaper. And the last story here says, SIM NIN, NCC defends blocking of phone lines, lawyer slams 10 billion naira suit. You can find details of the story on page 36 of the Punch newspaper. And these are all the stories you can find on the Punch newspaper.
Now on New Telegraph newspaper, attacks on trucks. MAN threatens to halt nationwide movements of goods. You can start with the details on the front page. Oil prices rises to $83.83 on OPEC plus voluntary cuts. And we can see that what OPEC is planning to do is beginning to yield from the crude oil per barrel going to 73. We are now seeing it at 83. And you can find details on page 8. The big story, constable recruitment, why Senate resolution will give Kano 440 policemen, Lagos 200, Bayelsa 80. Recruitment board will follow federal character principle. This is coming from a source, says law favors state-based arrangement. More details can be found on page 3. Alleged terrorism financing, rep seek arrest of Binance CEO and others. Coming from Musawa, Nigeria, Qatar, cultural exchange key to future relationships. It's an offense to keep files for more than 4 days, Wike tells directors. U.S. Supreme Court rules Trump can remain on presidential ballot. More details can be found on page 26. On the activation, lawyer slams 10 billion naira suit on MTN, Airtel, others over NIN SIM linkage. Orsanye reports execution, senior civil servants fear job losses. Federal government ASU face off, no respite for varsities yet. Again, court adjourns Kanu's 1 billion naira suit against federal government DSS to March 18. More details can be found on page 5. Still on the paper, Obasanjo counsels youth against suicide. This is concerning hardship, and I believe more youths are going into depression. It's really a sad one. You can find details on page 4, 5, and 9. It's just from one bad administration to another terrible administration. We are 8 years, 9 years, and counting, and it's only God that can help us in Nigeria, the youth particularly, because it's just sad to say that a lot of people were young when we had Buhari as the president, and we didn't see any better economy, and it's 8 years of your life and then it's gone, and you're still a youth, and you're hoping you can recover. Then Tinubu happened, and then you are now in a position wondering, when will you recover, when all the time you had the energy.
8 years of, okay, let's just work with the 4 that we have.
Exactly.
You know, the next 4 years, and you are still here.
And where you are,
have probably not recovered.
You haven't,
because when you go to social media, I know social media can be very funny.
It can.
You can nowadays when I go to social media and I see a post, I go to the comments because I just want to laugh. Exactly. And ease off and everything. And there was a comment I saw some days ago, and the person said, when we were young, I don't know how to say it. I don't know if I can remember quoting it verbatim, but let me just rephrase. Something like, when we were younger, we were thinking when we grow older, we'll be able to afford the things that we see people, like older people, can afford. But now that we are at that point, we can't even still afford those things because of how the economy has been deteriorating, and all of things are becoming really high. You have a job. Then you didn't have the job, you could not afford some things. You have a job,
you can't afford
those things.
True.
You know, it's unfortunate, it's sad that we are growing, you know, to find ourselves in that situation. But then we're still hopeful that probably one day we'll be able to afford those things.
I keep saying that you don't have any option than to be hopeful. And we talk about Japan, and as I say, regardless of Japan out of this country, 98% of Nigerians are still in Nigeria. It's still the majority. Forget that it's been felt because they are living from a sensitive sector, that is the health sector. So it's been felt. But regardless, we still have 98. I think I'm even being over like the number, but we have up to 98% of Nigerians still in the country. We are still here, and everybody is feeling the blow, is feeling the heat, and youths are not finding it easy. And don't put it as if the person considering suicide is in a mind to think straight or right. Do the needful. Tell people to get help, or rather, what are you doing to get help to youths regarding suicide? Because the person that is thinking suicide doesn't know they are not in the right mental state. That is, to them, their right mental state, and they're thinking that, you know what, you are in your right mental state, and you're thinking, I don't have money, I should double my hustle. His right mental stage is telling him, you end your life. That is your solution out of your problem. So rather than just leaving it is too vague and a helpless statement. What are you doing as a former head of state, as someone who has the youth in mind? Are you raising up awareness? Are you doing campaign? Are you sponsoring somebody out there to get help, to go see a psychologist, to go see a therapist? What are you doing about it? Because you're in the position
I would say something about seeing a therapist. People feel it's because you are meant, well, you're psycho or something. That's why you have to feel. But personally, I feel I should talk to somebody from time to time. Like personally, I feel important. Before I had the mentality that, well, why should I see a therapist or a shrink or something? Am I mad? Or am I going crazy or about derailed or mental health? But I think I've gotten to a stage that sometimes I want to talk to somebody that is not part of my life, not my family, not my sister, not my mother, not my friend. Like someone that is just there, just doesn't know anything. Listen. Just listen, and even if you can't get a therapist or somebody like that, I think you should have friends that are really reliable, friends you can trust with your whatever. I don't know, because so many people right now, the moment you tell them one thing, and it's adding to the depression, they will double it, and say it. You'll be shocked if you were the one that even said it. That's it. So I think having support system is really important, especially in this period, because people are not finding it funny. So you should get people that you can actually talk to and tell them, okay, this is the way I'm feeling. Reliable people, not people that will carry your gist and take it to Insta block or blog. You know, so it's really important that we take care of our mental health. It's important because just like you have mentioned, some people don't even realize that they're even depressed. Yes. So when you even realize it, I think you're even in a better position because you will try to get help. Yes. But there are situations that people don't even know that they are depressed or they are having a mental issue or they just need to speak to somebody. So it's really important that we take this into cognizance and then do what we should. We should take care of ourselves.
Yes, we should. Still on New Telegraph, federal government sets up public hearing on national minimum wage. At the downside of the paper, we have a study that links ultra-processed foods to 32 illnesses. There's no too much emphasis on the reduction on consuming processed food. You can find details on page 26. And before we move forward to other papers and stories there, we would like to take a short break. Please don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Thank you for not going anywhere. It's still the Dailies on Echo Television International, and we have been going through the paper, myself and Lois Turaki. Thank you, Lois. So we can move on to the next paper.
Now to First News newspaper. Silver seeks disbandment of Bayelsa Governorship Tribunal over bias. The writer says petitions appeal court precedent. Obaseki knocks CBN's new policy, says they can't support our economic growth. Ban on POS, others in police stations still in force, says IGP warns rather. And the central bank again warns Nigeria, others on new debt risks. Dangote names 120 kilometers refinery road after weekday. Abuja warehouse looting beyond hunger. Criminal says FCT minister. SIM NIN linkage. NCC gives updates on 11.2 million blocked mobile lines. The big story here says Senate set to grill CBN officials over 30 trillion naira Buhari loans. The writer says to commence probe this week, summons relevant officials may invite Emefiele later. On elections or politics, Edo Guba Obaseki assembly plots impeach deputy governor. And the writer says as 12 lawmakers sign Shuaibu's impeachment notice. Governor secures Oshomule's support to recruit APC lawmakers in impeachment process. An assembly to move impeachment motion on Wednesday. This Edo crisis has lingered for far so long, and I've been trying to follow up with the story, but I didn't really get hold of the real problem.
Yeah.
It looks like somehow it looks personal. On the other side, you see
personal, I think.
I think most of it is personal. And then, you know, impeaching the deputy governor.
Yeah.
I don't think that is the solution. I think these two people are supposed to, because from the onset, both of you agreed that you were going to come out like you will be the leader of the deputy.
Yeah.
And then I suppose they had a good relationship for them to be able probably to come up to say, okay, you do, I'll do. Although I know that it's a party team you will select and all of that. But then the way things have deteriorated between them is so much, because this issue, it has been on and on and on and on, and then now they are talking about impeaching. They are trying to even bring other people on board to help impeach the deputy governor. It's quite, I don't know, it's unfortunate, because I feel they should be able to see it. And it's difficult because, okay, I've never been in that position, but from people's stories, I know that you will see people that are friends. They were friends before coming to a particular position, and then when they get there, it becomes something else. They can't even see eye to eye and all of that. So probably they should sit and talk about this thing in a more understanding manner, and then it's not that hard. This life it's that simple. But it's politics after all. After now, you see them laughing and gisting and shaking hands again. But
and I just want to say that this is also a problem in Nigeria. This is just the end result, right? When we refuse to do things the right way. We can say that for governance. We can say that for federalism. We can say that for the presidential system of government. We can say that for everything we practice, even democracy. And we're seeing the same thing now happening in politics. Now, what are the laws guiding this? Is there any law that says Obaseki's deputy cannot? It's a question. If he can, then fine. You are under the same party. I believe that this is the problem where the dispute is, and of course deputy don't want to decamp to another camp and all of that. And then the thing is, fine, you come to have election, you will be having primaries. Let the people speak for who they want. Let the delegates select and say, you know what, this is the person we want to continue. And I have raised the concern, and I said, okay, He has been your deputy. Are you trying to say that you have worked with a man for all this while that you feel is incompetent? Then it means you were also incompetent in the first place. Because if I have been your vice Lois for a long period of time, it means you trusted my work, you wanted me to be there. And if you now come out and say I am not good in the first place, then it meant that you are also not good enough for you to not be able to choose a better vice and all of that. But when we don't do things the right way, we will keep seeing unnecessary feud. We will just see sentiment. We will just keep seeing selfish motives and hidden agenda, because it should be plain and simple. Let him run. Why are you trying to impeach him? Because he wants to run for an office and you have finished your tenure. It's not you have started 4 years and your vice is now going behind your back trying to spoil your chance of,
because I've seen
it
people,
might even be more personal if that's the situation.
Paul in Tallinn, when she
did that
after the first tenure, she came out and wanted to be governor in Plateau State.
We saw that.
Yeah, we saw that.
And she went ahead and she wasn't impeached from being the deputy. She was allowed to run and all of that. Either way, in the end, she lost. Why don't you allow things play like that? In the end, let the people choose. If he loses the election, fine. If he doesn't pass the primaries, good. But all of this, I mean, it's politics, and we take it more serious than governance in the country, and it's one of the reasons we are very, very backward.
If only we take all this feud to the energy
towards the right thing.
I think we will do better.
Fighting corruption and having no tolerance for terrorism.
I hope they do better anyways.
We hope so.
Yeah, back to the first newspaper. Akeredolu's family in disarray over Ayedatiwa's Guba ambition as widow blasts in-law for backing incumbent governor's campaigns. More troubles for Binance as reps recommend CEO's arrest over alleged tax evasion, money laundering in Nigeria. And the last story here on the first newspaper says Tinubu returns to Nigeria after 2-day visit to Qatar. And that's all the stories you can find on the first newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, the big story, looting of foodstuff. Atiku warns on imminent disaster as Obi slams federal government over Ukraine grain donation. Federal government kickstarts public hearing on national minimum wage. Federal government targets $8.79 trillion global business process outsourcing market. You can start with the details on the front page. Court adjourns Kanu's $1 billion suit until March 18. Equities market begins week on bullish note as investors gain. Tinubu returns from Qatar. The downside of the paper, Dangote, Edun Cardoso, African Development Bank President, others pay tributes to Wigwe. You can find details on page 4. We can see damage done by illegal refining. This is in Lagos State, where we have the story that Navy were able to destroy illegal refineries in Bayelsa, and we've talked about how this illegal mining is also contributing to the damage to water, land, and all of that. And you can find details inside the paper, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
Now to Nigeria News Direct. From the top, we have FG to commence public hearing on minimum wage. You can find details on page 21. BVN NIN linkage. Consumer Association calls for 3-month extension. Transcorp Power officially lists on NGX. Headsmen kill soldier, others in Benue State community. And the big story here says, with Wigwe, nothing was impossible. The writer says gallons of tributes as Edun Abiodun Cardoso, CIBN. Professionals hail Wigwe's fearless ambition as Dangote renames road in refinery complex after Wigwe, and Lagos pledges to immortalize Wigwe. You can find all the stories, the details on page 5 of Nigeria News Direct newspaper, and that's all the stories you can find on this particular newspaper.
On Teen Trust, we have a column on page 7 for entertainment, on page 9, cooking tips, page 10, short stories, and page 14 on well-being. Tech firm calls for competition entries. You can find details on the front page. The big story, Nigerian Tulip International College girls win Sun Coding Gigs Challenge. Details can be found on the front page. And that's all the news on Tin Trust newspaper.
Now to Business Day. The big story here says largest consumer firms lose 988 billion naira on weaker naira. SIM, NIN, telcos raised 242 billion naira revenue on barred lines. The last story on the business newspaper, Business Day rather, says Nigeria lags as Qatar reaps big on LNG expansion bet. You can find details of the story on page 2 of Business Day newspaper. And that's all the stories you can find on this newspaper.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, which will be the last paper for today, PSG hopes to earn from Mbappe's 150 million euros transfer fee. Genstar blasts club for selling give Orban. Man City in race to sign Musiala for £80 million. You can find the story inside the paper. The big story, tempting offer. NFF woos Pizarro with $80,000 monthly salary. Man United leads race for Osimhen. Details can be found on page 6. Vinicius to get banned for comments at ref. Salah returns against Man City. You can find details on the back page. We have Tuchel risks sack if he doesn't perform better, I believe. Chelsea sticks with Pochettino until end of season. Man United offers 60 million euros for Bremer. You can find details inside the paper. And on African Games, NOC lists 358 athletes to represent Nigeria. Arsenal ready to cash in on Nketiah for 50 million euros, and we saw their amazing victory yesterday. You can find details inside the paper. Southampton slams 23 billion naira on Onocho. You can find details on page 6. Anthony Joshua to earn £31 million for Igano fight. This is a big match and I can't wait. You can find details at the back page. We have other pictures here. You can find more inside the paper. And that's all the news on Sporting Sun and how far we will go on the show today. Thank you, Lois, for doing this with me. Until we come your way again tomorrow, do have a nice day.